Hello, listeners. I welcome you to another intriguing and informative episode of our program series Infrastructure Dimensions and Economic Development on Amorgate Radio Communications. I remain your host, Titilola Ogushono. For a while now, we've been looking at financial infrastructure and its implications on economic development of a nation. We examine the effect, the importance of SME financing on economic growth and development. For some episodes ago, we investigated countries around the globe with the best business climate for SMEs, and that particular report, I recall that we mentioned the top 5. We had Singapore at number 5, Netherlands at number 4, the United States at number 3, Hong Kong at number 2, and definitely the country that occupied the first spot was Canada in that report, and they were based on 6 components, for evaluating favorable business climate conditions. The first was red tape, we had tax policy, we had labor market flexibility, and of course, financing also was a major component. We had export opportunities and level of competition. So interestingly, there was no African country, occupying the first to the 5th position. But last week we mentioned that we'll be looking at the top 3 African countries with the most thriving SMEs. Yes, we have African countries that are doing so well, have rolled out policies in terms of financing different loans to support that. Their local businesses, indigenous SMEs in the country, and it has actually helped them. And we started with the first. We started looking at the top 3. We started with the first, and that was Kenya. And we mentioned that Kenya is known as Silicon Savannah because it is envisioned to be a global hub for technological innovation, and this is the technological ecosystem in Kenya. And we also unraveled some statistics, very standard statistics, interesting statistics, that in Kenya we have about 7.4 million MSMEs, and this has provided approximately about 14.9 million jobs to Kenya, and that is huge. We went further to look at government plans, policies, SME financing that has helped the MSMEs thrive in Kenya. So today, we'll be unraveling the peculiarities of another African country. This is a country that is doing so well in terms of SME financing, and the result has been very encouraging. It has helped the economy to grow. It has helped the economy to achieve considerable level of development, and that country is Mauritius. It is a country in East Africa, and research has shown that it has experienced over 3 decades of sustained economic growth. So today we're looking at Mauritius more intensely. You'll be looking at what are the growth drivers, what has helped Mauritius, what has helped them grow their SMEs to that point where we can see sustained economic growth over 3 decades. Mauritius, a country in East Africa, is outstanding and playing a leading role in growth and expansion of SMEs. SMEs represent the backbone and major driver of economic growth in Mauritius. In fact, according to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it recognizes that entrepreneurship in Mauritius is the heart of local and national economic growth, and even Ministry of Industrial Development, SMEs and Cooperatives for Mauritius in 2019 published a handbook that reveals some interesting statistics. It revealed that SMEs in Mauritius represented 99% of all enterprises. It also revealed that it provided about 50% of employment. It also make up a reasonable percentage of the gross value added at about 35.7%, and Also, SME, provided for about 12% of total exports. So the total export, according to the report of Mauritius in that particular year, 12% of total export came from this sector. And so if you look at all of these statistics, it is safe to say that SME is a critical pillar of the nation's economy. Now, has it always been rosy? Has there not been setbacks? Because we know that definitely globally we had the pandemic which affected global trade. Okay, we are aware that this affected global trade negatively, particularly SMEs, because SMEs who were to get raw materials from other countries were constrained, and they were forced to adapt to the changing business climate. There was a survey conducted by International Trade Center in 2022 on about 4,467 SMEs in about 132 countries. And findings revealed that about 55% of respondents were affected by the global pandemic. Definitely, of course, from what I've said, it's logical to see that they were affected. Okay, in fact, 1/5 of them were on the verge of either closing down the operation permanently or in the near future. And definitely, this was what happened globally. So definitely, Mauritius wasn't exempted. It was also economically affected by the lockdown. SMEs faced the problem in importation of raw materials as a result of international supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic. However, one thing that you cannot take away from the SMEs, particularly in Mauritius and even around the globe, but the focus is on Mauritius today, is that in spite of these challenges, SMEs have been very resilient and agile, which has enabled them weather that storm. An ability to weather that storm, and another factor that helps strengthen the agility and resilience of the SMEs has got a lot to do with the role of government. And the government of Mauritius made conscious, deliberate effort to set up conducive framework to ensure not just the survival but also the growth and progress of the SMEs. And I investigated to see that what have they done differently, what had Mauritius done deliberately. And I know that it takes concerted effort, it takes political will to be able to achieve this amazing growth of SMEs in a particular country. And I found out that Mauritius, they had a 10-year master plan. Okay, and it was a 10-year master plan, and it's towards looking at 2026. And what the government tried to do is that they looked at the present contribution of SMEs to GDP, which stood about 40%, and the target is that by 2026 they want to raise SME contribution to GDP from 40% to 52%. And again, they want to raise the SME share of total national employment from the present 55% to 64%. And also, they want to increase the current export as at then when the plan was couched, when the plan was laid out, from less than 3% to 15%. Okay, now if you look at the last report I saw in 2019, it was about 12% of export. So they came from less than 3% to what they are present in 12%, and the target is 15% by 2026. Now, going from what they are right now, I'm sure that they will not just meet that target, they will surpass that target. I've seen growth because at 2016, when the plan was laid out, it was 40% of GDP, they had 55% employment, and less than 3% exports. Okay, and the vision by 2030 is for Mauritius to be truly a high-income economy. And the mission of the plan is to foster the emergence of innovation, sustainable, and globally competitive SMEs. They were deliberate about it. That is what they want. So when a government has that kind of plan, it means that everything, the financial infrastructure, the policies that will be coming in, the kind of SME financing would be something that will be flexible, that will be adaptive, that will be responsive in order to achieve the growth of SMEs. It's not going to be rigid, it's not going to be conventional, it's not going to be traditional. According to the plan, they looked at some performance drivers. Okay, the first was regulatory and institutional framework. The second was national entrepreneurship strategy. The third pillar, the third pillar in terms of performance drivers to achieve this, which they looked at, was human capital and skills development. The fourth was innovation, technology, and green SMEs. Okay, the fifth pillar of the performance driver, access to finance and equity participation. What we're looking at is SME financing. We started with saying infrastructure dimensions. That's the theme of this program series. The focus is on financial infrastructure, and looking at financing of SMEs. So that is the fifth pillar, the performance driver here. And six is marketing and regional export capacity building. The performance drivers, a whole lot, but our focus today, on this particular episode is to look at the access to finance and equity participation, because it's a major driver that has helped Mauritius achieve thriving SMEs. So what happens when you have a plan in place? When this plan was set up in 2017, it would have looked unrealistic. It would have looked like a very long stretch goal. It will have looked unattainable. But what it does for you is that, as a nation, is that when there's a plan, well thought through plan, on ground, you can now look for funding. And when the funding comes, it becomes easier to implement and execute the plans on ground. Okay, so I look further to what helped Mauritius, achieve this, because you can't achieve SME finance without adequate funding. Okay, so African Development Bank gave Mauritius about 100 million USD loan. Gave them a loan of 100 million US dollars. Okay, and the bank approved the loan through its public sector window to More Bank Holdings Limited. And you might want to say, for those who don't know much about More Bank Holdings Limited, is only owned by the government of Mauritius, and there is so much commitment from this from this bank to support the 10-year SME master plan that was launched in 2017. And the objective of this loan was to expand SME businesses across sectors and foster private sector investment, and the sectors include manufacturing, trade, agriculture, aquaculture, ICT, and transport. And the interesting thing about this 10-year SME master plan of Mauritius is that it aligned with the African Bank Development, what we call the I5S agenda, with particular focus on industrializing Africa. And the facility that was given had the intention of promoting inclusive growth in the country. Now, if you want to achieve economic development, you must experience growth in all sectors of the economy. There must be sectoral balance. You can't just have the manufacturing sector thriving at the expense of the agriculture, aquaculture, ICT, and transport. It's going to affect your GDP. It's going to affect your exports. It's going to affect your balance of trade position. It's going to affect your balance of payment equilibrium. It's going to affect your foreign exchange earnings. So, that sectoral balance, and you have SMEs across all of those sectors, was a very major stride that Mauritius took. And that's paid off at the end of the day. Said that the essence of studying each of these African countries is to see what lessons can we learn. So for those hearing about the I5S agenda for the first time, the African Development Bank Group had their strategy already, existing strategy, okay, and what Akim Adesina, the 8th elected president of the ADP group back then said in his inaugural lecture on the 4th of September 2015 was that there was a need to set down a new agenda for the bank group, okay? And what he did was to focus on 5 main development priorities for the bank group. And that's what we call the popular I5S. Okay, and the first one was to light up and power Africa. Okay, and it's a whole lot on it, so we have to go into that. Was a light up and power Africa. The second was to feed Africa. The third was to industrialize Africa. The fourth was to integrate Africa, and the fifth was to improve the quality of life of the people of Africa, because this 5 A's would be crucial for achieving transformation of the lives of African people, and also these from the 5 A's were also consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals, popularly called the SDGs, agenda of the United Nations. If you look at the 10-year plan, the SME master plan of Mauritius, it actually aligns with the third development priority of the African Development Bank Group, that is to industrialize Africa. So when next you hear about the I5S agenda, I'm sure their listeners will be able to know what it is. Light up and power Africa, feed Africa, industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of the life of people of Africa. If I just joined us, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an interesting session thus far. Today, we are looking closely at Mauritius, one of the African countries with thriving SMEs. And we always said that the focus of looking at these countries is to see what lessons other African countries can learn from them. Now, we'll be looking at the financing, okay, SME financing, the loans, the facility given to SMEs. Now, whether you like it or not, you should understand that liquidity is the lifeblood of any market. And definitely, there's no SME that can thrive without adequate funding. And for a businessman, the interest element is very crucial. It's important. If the interest rate is very high for a business, it's going to even discourage investment. And for the few that will be encouraged to invest, it also means that it might likely, erode their profitability level. And again, if there are risk involved, okay, how do you to navigate this risk when the interest element is very high? So I try to look at what Mauritius have done differently, okay, because we have African countries with very high level of interest rates. We have African countries with 2 digits. What I've seen so far in my climate is loans with 2 digits. Okay, especially per annum, 2 digits. When you have a loan with a single digit, maybe 3%, 4%, it's actually, maybe very special loans that are available to few people. So I just want to see what Mauritius have done differently, and I got what the Development Bank of Mauritius Limited have been giving out to their citizens in terms of loan, the interest on it. I want to look at the first one, that's the agro loans, the agric loans. Okay, that was this new agricultural loan scheme that I saw. The maximum loan amount that you could have is 10 million Mauritius rupee. That's, and if for those who don't know, I checked the exchange rate is about 1 Mauritius rupee to 32.28 to 32.28 naira. So that's 1 to 32.28 naira. Give us the value, the worth of the Mauritius rupee. And the interest rate, the maximum loan amount that you can get is about 10 million Mauritius rupee. The interest rate is 3.5% per annum. 3.5% per annum, and there is a moratorium period up to a year depending on the project, and the repayment period is up to 7 years. So look at the amount you have access to. The interest rate is 3.5%. The repayment period is up to 7 years. So you are not choked. You have more time to pay back. To the peculiarities of your people, of your economy, that's be responsive. Because when you look at your particular economy, you know where your strengths are, you know where the people are. So in order to solve it, you also look at the informal sector. When you have more people in the formal sector, there must be SME loans designed for those in the informal sector, because for some people, for some developing countries, especially African countries, realize that the bulk of the SME lies with the formal sector. Some of them are not registered. So there must be specific loans to strengthen the informal sector. Mauritius, they have a lot of SME loan varieties, but I will just speak to some that I find very insightful, that I know that other African countries, other people can also look into. Okay, they have what they call the MSME financing loan scheme. Okay, and the maximum loan amount is about 10 million, the Mauritius rupee. The interest rate is 3.5% per annum. The moratorium period is up to a year. The repayment is up to 7 years, including the moratorium period. And the purpose of the loan is for those in manufacturing sector, the service sector, tourism, and ICT. And what I have also seen is that what you just need, equity contribution is 10%. What you need to own is just 10%. The Development Bank of Mauritius Ltd would finance the 90% of cost of the project. Okay, and eligibility is not limited to companies alone, individuals, companies, and corporations. However, the security that would be required for such a loan would be according to the DBM terms and conditions. Okay, I find another loan. That's why we talk about adaptability. We talk about being responsive to the peculiarities of your business environment. For Mauritius, there's another loan scheme to small contractors. Okay, that the MSME financing and loan scheme is another one. It's a different one, but they have a specific loan scheme to small contractors. There's also a loan scheme to small contractors. The maximum loan amount is about 25 million. The interest rate is also about 3.5% per annum. The repayment period is up to 5 years. And the purpose of the loan is to improve competitiveness of local construction company. And definitely the structure of the finance is 10% equity and 90% of cost of project will be financed by the bank. Okay, another loan scheme that I also like, that I also feel it's also very relevant, that could have helped SMEs thrive in Mauritius, be responsible for the thriving state of SMEs, is the Women Entrepreneur Loan Scheme. The maximum amount is about 1 million. Okay, now it's about 1 million Mauritius rupee. And they can get loans of up to 500,000. Okay, is about 0.5% per annum. And that is going to be really encouraging for women to go into business, because loans of up to 500,000 is about 0.5% per annum. That's the interest rate on such loan. And for anything above 500,000 to 1 million will be 3% per annum. Okay, the moratorium period is up to a year, depending on the project. The repayment period is about 7 years, including the moratorium period. Okay, the eligibility is for women entrepreneurs or companies with women among them majorly shareholders. Okay, so if you have a company that we have majority of them as women as shareholders, then you are eligible to this kind of loan. And there's also a special loan scheme to retailers. And for the retailers loan is up to 5 million, is also 3.5% per annum. The repayment period is up to 7 years. The purpose of loan: renovation, refurbishment of shop, purchase of equipment, and even working capital. And what you just need to have, if you have all this project at hand, is just have 10% equity. What I've seen across board, has always been 10% equity, 90% will be provided by the bank. That's what I've seen so far. And the lowest I've seen is that of Women Entrepreneur Loan Scheme, that for loans up to 500,000, the interest rate is 0.5% per annum. So the loan scheme I'm going to be talking about on today's episode is this. And I feel this is going to be innovative for African countries, because I know a lot of countries the African continent have more of the SMEs in the formal sector. And I know even in Nigeria, we have a lot of street hawkers. We have people hawking, on the streets, beside stations, that's the terminals, the bus station, the bus terminals, the train terminals. We have all of this issue in developing countries. But I found this particular loan scheme, I found it very innovative. I found it very responsive. Okay, and that is the Urban Terminal Hawkers Loan Scheme. I'll take it again. The Urban Terminal Hawkers Loan Scheme. Okay, the maximum you can get is about 495,000. The interest rate is about 2% per annum. The moratorium period is about 12 months. The payment period is 10 years, including the 12-month moratorium. Now, the purpose of this loan I also find very strategic. I find it very responsive, and I find it long-term driven. Is that the purpose of the loan is the purchase of commercial slots at the urban terminal. Okay, and what you just need is to have 10% equity. So you want to take these people off, okay? That must be provision for them. This is what I keep saying. You want to take them off the street, it's fine from hawking to a safer place. Then, create the shops and find a way to have loans for them. You can't just, it must be affordable, and the repayment period must be flexible, must be long. So 10 years is easy. They can do other things. They can grow. They're going to have income. They can expand. And that is what I find. If I look at all of the loan schemes in Mauritius, this is one of the schemes that I find very responsive. I would say one of the most responsive loan schemes that I have seen. Okay, as at today. Okay, and the eligibility is ELCA selected by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. So there'll be a criteria for that. So it's well monitored. You can get data. Then you can take more informed decisions and also for better planning. Okay, because that's the way to go in terms of economic development. Economic development will not happen overnight. You need to strengthen your financial infrastructure. You need to strengthen your SMEs. And of course, the SME financing is very important. You've been able to, understand the peculiarity of your economy, understand the peculiarity of your people, understand the peculiarity of a business climate. This is the way to go so that we can come up with responsive, effective SME financing loan schemes for our people. On this note, I would like to draw the curtain here. I hope that you found this episode informative, intriguing, and expository like I found it. We have other programs that run Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. WAT. My program runs on Fridays, same time, 5 p.m. WAT. The programs we have for Mondays through Thursdays before my program on Fridays are also very interesting, expository, informative. These are programs that you're going to learn a lot from. And if you want to listen to other episodes, recorded versions of previous episodes, kindly subscribe to our YouTube page. You can watch over 180 videos that have been uploaded there. And if you want to learn so much about us, you could check our website, www.theamorgate.org. For your consulting, training, and communication needs, we have you covered. Also, our social media handles are there for you to check us. The name is Amorgate. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. It will be good to have you there with us. And of course, I will not leave without dropping a quote to every business owner out there, to every entrepreneur out there, to every female young entrepreneur out there. I want you to know that you're on the right track, and I will leave this quote with you. This is specifically for you, and the quote is from Aruna Bahana. which says that the biggest mistake a small business can make is to think like a small business. So the biggest mistake that you can make is to think like a small business. It's a small, but your growth process cannot accurately captured. You cannot estimate how far you can grow. The only thing that can limit you as a young striving entrepreneur is to have a limiting mindset. So please, every entrepreneur out there, have that growth mindset. Stop thinking small. The business is small, but think big. Okay, until I find my way to your devices next Friday, 5 p.m. WAT, I'm saying bye from here. Wish you a relaxing and fun-filled weekend. I remain Titilola Ogushona. Bye.